happens through the generations when there was war. After that, there's a lot of things that are destroyed. You can talk about infrastructure, farmland destroyed. If that is the case, and it will be, everything will change. Everything will not be the same again. It means you do what? You need to be wise, have food. So, but now listen to this. This is where the third horseman comes in. What does the scripture say?
And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine.
Do you hear that? Let me tell you about this horseman. He's a dealer. He's a dealer. What are you talking about? Now, those scales, some people, they translate it as judgment. There are scriptures where the Lord says, I have put you on the scale and I have found you wanting. Yeah. But this one is not judgment. This one is talking about food. As you can hear all the way to the end, it's referring to wine, referring to oil. Whatever he has done through the years, it has set him up to be who he will be in this generation. He will be what? The third horseman. He will control the world economy. You see that? Whatever he has done, if I told you who this one is, you will agree, you will say it is true. The third horseman, he will surely be the one. But now, it's not yet the time. But I believe who are my subscribers will surely have that opportunity for me to tell you the names of the two.
Alright, hello YouTube. You have heard the recap, the previous video that I did, and I did it that way without mentioning the names, and I did say that whoever is wise is going to understand the clues that I was including in the video. I gave the clues because I knew that someone out there might understand what I was trying to say or who I was talking about. So if you did, good for you. But now I'm going to give you the name of the third horseman. But now let's just go do a recap of what has been. Like I explained also in previous videos, look how the horsemen have been viewed as evil. And of course, even I use the same image because people, that's what they want to see. If you give them the normal, they won't take it. They want to see chaos. They want to see demonic beings because many do not know who these horsemen are. Do you see that? Now, it is sad that, let's just take a look. Look at all these videos. Look at all these videos. None of them are on point to really point out who these horsemen are. Do you see that? They are literally lost. Look at this one. Do you see what they put right there? Let's go. Do you see that? And some just use the name for the four horsemen to just describe other things. None of these videos will give you exactly what the four horsemen really are. Some they say no, it is past events. The horsemen have already passed. Like someone who challenged me in one of the debates on social media and said no, it's long gone, the horsemen are already long gone, they are they have already come and gone. But let me show you something. This is what is sad about preachers. Even preachers get it wrong. I wonder how. Don't they pray? How do preachers call the first horseman as an antichrist? Many preachers will say antichrist. Many preachers, when it comes to the first horseman, yes, they disagree with others who say this is Christ. This is not the Lord. This is not the Antichrist. They also miss it. So you have a large number, they are saying, no, it is the Antichrist. And you have preachers, yes, preachers who say Antichrist, and you have others who say it is Christ. Same thing with all these. Most of these, you'll find that most of these are leaning on the side to say Antichrist, or some also will be leaning on the side to say it is Christ. But it's why do these people get it wrong? Because you don't go to the source. You go to your mind, your own understanding. But most of these videos, they are made by or copying from one another. Someone just sees, okay, I think what's trending here, for example, you see 141k views, 48k views, and now you just want to be in the trend. You check what YouTubers do. They check the topics that are trending and they go ahead and make them. Look at this, 2.4 million views. For what? For nothing. There is no information that is correct in all this, because it's all about what is trending. Now, you can check my videos. They are not in this level. But I'm giving you exactly what I was taught. So, like I said, when it came to the revelation of the four horsemen, when I read the scriptures, the next day I went back because I was amazed, but asking the Lord, how is it that we've missed it? We could have understood. So I went to check the scriptures. I got one, I checked, I got another book, different version, same thing. I couldn't find what I read a night before. So I opened the one that is on the PC, Olive Bible, nothing. I checked on my phone, nothing. But I see, But I read that. While I was wondering, it came to me. I was reading that in the spirit. God opened my spiritual eyes to see exactly what is written. That is why the book of Revelation is not about reading with your mind. No. Read and ask the Lord to open your eyes. If you don't ask Him to open your eyes, you won't see it. I say you will not see it. You will not see what's written right there. So that's what happened. I didn't ask. I was led. Why God chose me, He knows. So He gave me the names, and I am giving the names right now. So that's it. Now let's go to let me start with the first horseman. That's not the Antichrist. One prophet, the Lord said, He is my servant. He was not talking about the horseman. Let me just say, He was just saying this man, God chose him to be His servant. And this man exactly did what the description calls. He defeated. He went out to defeat. He brought peace to the earth. Look at the peace that was upon the earth when he was president. And now look what happened after. So this man is not an antichrist. That's Donald Trump. He was, I say was because his time is past.
And then a few days later, after this visitation on the 5th of October 2020, as I was praying at 2:30 in the morning, I saw in a vision 3 powerful prince angels stationed around Mr. Trump. And this is similar to Daniel chapter 11 verse 1, where the angel told the prophet Daniel that he stood with King Darius to strengthen him. You know, okay, now, before I go to the next sentence, now ponder for a moment. Babylon is not a religious nation, right? It's a pagan nation, given to worship of all kinds of idols and entire paganism. Yet, an angel of God was appointed to watch over a king. You know why? Because of one righteous praying man. One righteous praying man. You see, that is why it is very important to be strategically planted. Very important where you should be in the plan of God. Amen. Don't miss your destiny. You miss your destiny, then gone. Wrong place, wrong timing, you miss your destiny. It will be gone for good. You miss your entire destiny. So, the Lord said, 3 powerful prince angels are stationed. So now I should use the word were stationed. I don't doubt that they are not with Mr. Trump anymore. I don't doubt that. I do believe they are still there, looking after him. Because the purposes are not over yet. Not over yet. So then the Lord said, the angels will strengthen him and he will triumph. Now, I don't understand what that meant. I said it then and I said it again. He will triumph does not mean he will win the elections or he will come back. It doesn't mean that. It may not be. But I must sincerely and truthfully tell you that I do not know what it meant. And the Lord did not explain it either, what it really meant. So I received a lot of brickbats after the election, say, you are a false prophet. You have given a false prophecy. I said, I did not say he is going to win. Like I said in 2016, for absolute sure, I said that. Dr. Bruce and Reshma were in the meeting when I delivered that prophecy, because I was shown in absolute certainty he will be the next president. So I said it publicly in absolute certainty. But this time, I was not shown in absolute certainty except a declaration of the will of God, the purposes of God. This is the will, but you choose. This is the will. But in the first time, it was an automatic appointment. That is why, at the last moment, the balances tipped in Trump's favor in 2016. You all know, right? He was losing. There was no way he could have won against Hillary. But suddenly it tipped. Why? Because God had willed. He will be. I was in the council where Abraham told me, he will be the next president of the United States. Period. Nothing more than that. But this time, it was not like that. And then the Lord said, I love him. He is my servant. he will fulfill my will for the nation as well as Israel. Now look at what has happened now. The new administration is supporting the Palestinians and all the Islamic fanatics. Look at what happened. This is not the will of God. But because the people made a wrong choice, now you're going to go down the drain. You lost your 4 years, extra 4 years of grace. You lost it.
Then the red horseman. I did a video. I revealed that this is Putin. Then let's go now. This horseman. To this horseman. Yes, it's in the times of famine and economic collapse. But let me show you exactly why he has these. In the video I said what? He is a businessman. Why did they say he is a businessman? I'll come to that. But let me show you about how God made this possible. These horsemen were not. God chose these horsemen, and He made sure that political or democratic elections will have no hold on them. It was in 2016 December when He told me about them. And check the events that followed. Now, check the events that followed. What do you see? Vladimir passes law that makes him keep office until 2036. Do you see that? Look at the news, how it went. Do you see that? This only did what? It only confirmed what the Lord told me. That he would be the second horseman, and he would have been out of office by this time if the elections went ahead. Because these presidents, of course, most nations, it's you serve 2 terms, but you are out. But he changed the law. He stayed. Do you see that? So this confirmed, and it humbled me when I saw all this. And I said, Lord, you are indeed great. You are correct. Because at this time, he hadn't even started writing as a second horseman. Now let's go to the third horseman. Now the third horseman, I said he was a businessman. Also, a similar thing happened. Change the law of the land to make him for a longer period. Now this third horseman, when the Lord told me the name, he did not use his name, but the name of a nation. Why the name of the nation? I just understood this morning when I was thinking about it, and I realized that that's what every nation or every news is talking. They are not mentioning the name. They are not mentioning their name of the person. Their name using the name of the nation. Now let me introduce to you the third horseman. He changed the law to stay, and he is your third horseman. There it is. That is your third horseman. I said he was a businessman back in the other video. What does that mean? Look at the investment China did in nations, and everyone was blindsided, not understanding what was going on. You know that wrestle show, the entertainment program for wrestling. One of them is called John Cena when he waves his hand and say, "You can see me." China did just that. He went ahead, Xi Jinping went ahead and invested in many nations, African nations, nations in the Middle East. He did what? He put his hand in all these nations. Look at that. Do you see that? Now, what does this do? The economical control, holding the balances. Yes, the balances. They will also stand for judgment. The courts, they use those balances to stand for judgment. Even there's one scripture that says, "I have tested you, put you on the balances, and I found you wanting." God is judging. Yes, God is judging. And yes, we are the world. And yes, we are in it now. God is now judging the world. But now the balances in this instance, we're going to talk about the economic control. Yes, the collapse of the economy will happen, but the control, he will control. So like I said, he is a businessman. I was trying to get you people to understand that who is he talking about? You could have realized that there is one president who is investing in most nations, and you could have realized it was President Xi Jinping. So you see that? So China, John Cena, every other nation, the European nations, America could not see it coming. They literally could not see it coming, and there it is.
To the world. So that's why you are here. So then the Lord began to speak. First he spoke generally, and then he looked specifically at me and he said, "Now this is what you must bring to the nations." And saying that, he said, "Before you give the word, you must show them one thing and place it on the pulpit, and then you give this word." So that's what I'm going to do now. I've never done anything like this in my entire life. So this will be a first. All of you know what is this, right? Is this good sign or bad sign? Okay, now I deliver to you the word of the Lord, verbatim. I'm not going to add one word more. I'm not going to one word subtract. I'm going to read to you as how the Lord spoke to me. The nations are weighed in the balances and found wanting. That's the first word.
And now let's talk about chapter 2. Let's talk about USA. USA has been trying to get on top of what's going on. I have videos. You can hear through the news what's going on. USA desperate to get on top of this and try to get African nations to go back on the side of USA. But I think it's too late. It is too late. Why do I say it's too late? Look at that. We are talking about, look at that. Do you see that? Do you see that? Point one thing that USA Europe has built in Africa? Do they build stadiums? Do these nations build roads? I believe they literally cannot do that. They cannot do that. But look at China. Look at China. What is China doing? Building rail lines, infrastructure, building airports, roads. And these other nations, what are they doing? They are giving money. Money can just go in the pocket as it does. In Africa, you give African nations money, it goes in pockets of those leaders. Literally. Do you see that? And in the end, you have nothing to claim. You only say, oh, we borrowed you this much. Yes, you did. And it ended right there. Do you see that? So now let's talk about, let me give you an illustration. Two banks. One bank buys a house and gives it to somebody and say, you pay us over this period. And another gives a loan to somebody to decide what they do with the money. Do you see that? And then towards, say, a few more years to go, both banks, they say, okay, we are canceling the debt. The bank that gave cash has nothing to point out because they gave cash. And money is not something that is more like tangible. It's more like invincible. Because once someone has cash, they can do anything with it. But if the bank that gave a house to somebody and cancelled the remaining cash the person was supposed to pay, it has something to point at. This is what we gave you. Do you see that? So China has something to point at in all of these nations. These other nations, they're just doing debt cancellation after giving, lending money. And what does that do? It doesn't really make someone more like bound because you have nothing on them. China has something on all these nations. Like I said, Xi Jinping was wise. And look at that. And are you going to call this an antichrist? Because that's what all these videos did. Yes, he doesn't believe in God, and of course he doesn't allow religion in the nation. Christianity, whatever religion, is not allowed in China. But that doesn't make him an antichrist as depicted like that. It's just a normal human being. Do you see that? So this is what China did. Wise. Do you see that? He also did what? Change the law so that he can rule longer. Another fulfillment from 2016, because if all this didn't happen, then Xi Jinping wasn't going to be the third horseman. Do you see that? Now he is, because the law was changed and he will rule indefinitely. Now, we are talking about USA and all these nations where they missed it. They didn't invest. What did you build? Let me give you one video of Kamala Harris coming over to Africa, trying to give these nations money. We are back to the same thing. Money. USA, listen to me. Listen to who? Listen to me. You are missing the mark. You are still giving money, trying to buy friendship or loyalty. It won't work. The money you are giving won't surpass the infrastructure that China has on these nations. China has a hold on these nations. But listen to the question this journalist asked.
Influence in Africa is very controversial in Washington. Do you consider China's role in the continent a constructive one? And what could the United States do to play a more constructive role here as well?
China's influence on Africa viewed in certain ways in the context of the US. What could US do to help Africa or Zambia, as it were? Let me just step aside a little bit and say things must not be seen that way. Things must not be seen that way. I totally agree with the Vice President that we're here to foster the US-Zambia relationship. But there's a context in the sense that that relationship exists in the operating environment where other countries also exist. So, but the contextualization that if the US and Zambia share a lot in common, strong bilateral relationship, historical relationship, then they are doing things against China, is actually wrong. Completely wrong. So I have said before, when I'm in Washington, I'm not against Beijing. Equally, when I'm in Beijing, I'm not against Washington. We have a globe we share. We have a planet we share, Earth. For us in Africa, we have our continent. It is easy to say when the president of Zambia is visiting Pretoria in South Africa, he's against Abuja and Nigeria. That's the logic. Not quite. What we expect of America and China as the two leading economies, number one, USA, number two, China, is to help us keep our world safe for everybody. Keep peace, stability, which would allow us to focus, for example, like us, on our economic reconstruction agenda. And by the way, as Zambia, to a large extent, we are responsible for the downgrade of our economy. The way we transacted, the way we related with people. That's why we, since taking office, we've reset our relationship with the global community, the League of Nations. I'm talking about the civilized League of Nations. So essentially, for now, we're expecting the US, as we have done in our conversations, to support us on resolving this debt overhang, for which, as a country, we're responsible. We didn't manage our affairs properly. We must accept that. Equally, we are asking, when we meet China, we are asking them to assist us resolve our debt burden and free resources to where they should go. Apply the freed resources where they should go. So I am saying that the US and us have our relationship. They have their relationship with China. We have our relationship with the US. We have our relationship with China. But none of these relationships are about working against someone or a group of countries. I think that's what will keep our world safer, peaceful, secure. But let me be direct. I do believe that the US and China are engaging almost daily because of who they are, these two big countries. And our request to them is to keep our world safe, peaceful, orderly. For us, we would like to advance our democratic relationship with the Americans and with others. I must say, and I said it yesterday, it's in public domain, we believe that a democratic framework will allow us to advance our agenda economically and socially. We came from a one-party state, dictatorship. We didn't like it. It didn't work for us. So we want to stay this course. But we must not always see each other that when we meet with the Vice President, then we are plotting against someone. We're not. Thank you.
Let me answer that the president in this clip did not answer correctly. he answered, okay, more like partly there's something there, but the correct thing he was supposed to say is build something. Really, build something. What can we point at? That you built this, you built that? Nothing. Like I said, money is kind of invincible. You can't see it. Once you give it to someone, it's done. So build something. So USA missed the mark. Still trying to do the same thing by giving cash, trying to buy these nations with money. It won't work. Now, let's just go through most of these videos quickly, because this video is going to be too long if I just continue talking. Listen to these videos and see where this world is going and what's going on, and how USA is missing it, how USA is falling and collapsing. The end of the superpower is now. So let's listen. Chapter 3.
US Vice President Kamala Harris has announced a trip to Africa later this month. Now, she's set to visit Ghana, Tanzania and Zambia on her first trip to the continent since becoming Vice President. Now, that's on the heels of US State Secretary Antony Blinken's visit to the region, where he announced that the United States would be allocating $150 million to combat security issues in the Sahel region. Well, to discuss the current state of affairs in Africa, we welcome to the studio Dr. Fred M'membe, the president of the Zambian Socialist Party. Dr. Fred, thanks very much for joining us today here at RT. Now, obviously, Kamala Harris is going to Africa very soon, and as I just mentioned, Antony Blinken has just been there. And Sergei Lavrov has had numerous tours of Africa recently. Do we see Africa, do we see the United States and Russia vying for influence at Africa at the moment? What would you say to that?
Maybe before I answer that question, let me start with the ICC indictment of President Putin.
Okay.
I think it's mischievous, it's malicious, it has no legal basis, it's all politics and very cheap politics. The people who are supposed to have been indicted by the ICC are President Bush, Tony Blair, and others, including President Clinton. They killed Muammar Gaddafi. They killed many Libyans with no good reason. They have killed children in Syria. They have killed so many people in Iraq. They have killed so many people in Afghanistan. They have killed our leaders. They killed Patrice Lumumba. They have killed so many Africans, so many other people in the world. None of them has been indicted by the ICC.
So we're sticking with the ICC then we'll move on to Africa a little bit shortly. It's certainly a very interesting timing, and it definitely comes on the eve of President Xi Jinping's visit to Moscow. It's obviously the 20th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq as well. What do you make of the timing of the ICC's arrest warrant for President Vladimir Putin?
They don't want the war to end. They are benefiting from this war. It's their war. It's a proxy war that they are fighting. They don't want the war to end. President Xi Jinping's trip here is part of the effort to end this conflict. There's need to end this conflict. It's unnecessary. It's a conflict they started. It's a conflict they're fueling. It's a conflict they want to sustain for their own benefit, not even for the benefit of the Ukrainian people. The Ukrainian people wanted to live in peace. They need peace. But the peace of the Ukrainian people cannot be guaranteed without guaranteeing also the security of the Russian people. Mm-hmm. Security for Russia is necessary just as much as there's need for security for Europe, there's security for America. Every nation on this planet should feel secure if we have to achieve peace in the world.
Do you think there'll be any concrete agreements reached between Xi Jinping and Putin during that visit in terms of peace in Ukraine?
I think President Putin has been positive. From 2008 through to 2014, if the Americans and their partners had been listening, they had been wanting peace, there would be no conflict in Ukraine. This is their conflict. They wanted it. Mm-hmm. They have sustained it. President Putin means well. President Xi Jinping means well. They would like to see this conflict end. But it can't end if the security concerns of Russia are not guaranteed, are not listened to. Russia didn't just walk into Ukraine. They had been pleading from 2008 to have a peaceful region. You can't be pushing NATO through into Moscow.
Although, ironically, NATO will be on Russia's border now when Finland becomes part of NATO, which was recently ratified by the Turkish leader.
It is part of the escalation of conflicts. It's part of the making of Russia insecure. The USA would not accept Russia or China to have military facilities in Canada, to have military facilities in Mexico. They would not accept that. They never accepted the missiles placed in Cuba in 1962. You saw what crisis arose out of that. But today they are setting up bases everywhere in the world, including in my own country, Zambia. They are setting up a military office, which they are calling a military office, but we know it's a military facility. What has Zambia got to do with the USA security?
But do you see both Russia and America and China vying for influence in Africa as a whole now? Obviously, there's some high-profile visits of Kamala Harris, Antony Blinken, and Sergei Lavrov has done numerous tours of Africa as well.
Russia, China have been dealing with Africa for a long time. They have been on the side of Africa in Africa's liberation struggles. They have been on the side of Africa in Africa's effort to build these nations. They have been with us. The Americans have been on the side of those who oppressed Africa, those who brutalized Africa, those who dehumanized Africans. They have been on it. They supported the apartheid regime in South Africa. It's not a secret. They even participated in the arresting of Nelson Mandela and sending him to prison for 27 years. They were arming the racist minority regime, white minority regime in Zimbabwe, Rhodesia then. They were supporting their bombings of villages, of facilities in Zambia. They supported the colonial authorities in Angola, in Mozambique, in Cape Verde, in Guinea-Bissau. They participated in killing of our leaders, national liberation heroes. What can they tell us today? What do they want? How many people has Russia killed, even under the Soviet Union in Africa? How many Africans have the Chinese killed in Africa? Who has led coups in Africa, military coups? Has Russia carried out any military coup in Africa? Has China carried out any military coup in Africa?
How would you say Russia's relations with Africa have changed since the start of the war in Ukraine last year?
Russia was lying low with Africa. The relationship was not so much pronounced. And Russia has never been advertising its relations with Africa. Even the support to the African peoples in their national liberation struggles was not for publicity, was not for politics. Russia had no companies operating in Africa at that time when they were supporting our national liberation. Not a single mine, not a single business was owned by Russia on the African soil. You can say the same about China. But can we say the same about the United States? Can we say the same about Britain or and other European countries, France? They have exploited that for centuries. Russia even refused to take part in the scramble of Africa. The Tsar had a representative at the 1884 Berlin Conference in which Africa was carved into Bantustans. But Russia never took a territory in 1874, 1884, 1885.
Now, just to play devil's advocate, Dr. Fred, there have been some critics of China that say that it's luring many countries in Africa into a debt trap by providing these big loans with very sort of quite easy conditions without strict enough ways of paying it back. What would you say to those critics of China?
Let's look at the countries that are said to be highly indebted. Let's take Zambia. Only 30% of Zambia's debt, external debt, belongs to China and Chinese enterprises. 70% of it belongs to the Western companies and institutions. 70%. Only 10%, about 10% of Ghana's foreign debt is with China, if not less. Actually, it's less. The great majority of it, 80%, 90%, belongs to Western institutions. So who is causing a debt trap for Africa, for African countries? If you go to Zambia today, you can see clearly where the debt with the Chinese lies. You see the rail in Africa, you see rail lines in Africa, you see hospitals, you see schools, you see hydropower stations, you see agriculture dams, and so on. And even, they are not even talking about the free things that have been done. If you go to Zambia today, the second biggest hospital in the country is a gift from China. The biggest conference hall built in Lusaka is a gift from China. The biggest soccer stadium in Zambia today, the Heroes Stadium, is a gift from China. The Chinese don't talk about these things. You will not find a hospital, a big hospital, built by Americans or the British. You will not find a big road built by them. You will not find anything of value or that is tangible. You will not find an airport. When Kamau Harris lands in Lusaka, she'll be landing at an airport built by the Chinese. She'll be traveling on the road to a hotel on a road built by the Chinese.
Does Russia have a big footprint in Zambia at the moment? How do you characterize the relations between those two countries, and how do you see their prospects for development in the future?
We need more cooperation with Russia.
Where do you see
After
that?
the national liberation, Russia pulled back. It just kept on supporting. We have so many students, African students, studying in Russia today, a continuation from the 60s. We have a university here in Moscow that was built in solidarity with the African peoples, in honor of Patrice Lumumba. Can you find that anywhere in the West? The support to Africa had continued, but the problem is Russia did not go into heavy economic cooperation with Africa in terms of investments and so forth. You don't find many Russian enterprises in Africa. You don't find many.
Do you see that changing in the future?
We want that to change. No country on this planet can solve all its problems by itself. We all need each other. Even the richest country, the United States, needs the cooperation of others. We need cooperation with Russia.
Now, obviously, there are countless problems throughout the world and in Africa, and Anthony Blinken promised $150 million to the Sahel region to help battle Islamist insurgents there. What do you make of that? Will it help, or should the international community be tackling the problem in a different way?
Even the 150 million they have pledged is too little. Look at the amounts of money they are pouring into Ukraine. Look at the billions. The problem in the Sahel has been created by them. We didn't have Islamist insurgency before the toppling and the killing of Muammar Gaddafi. They started importing extremists into Libya to fight Gaddafi. The problem has continued. It's the same situation in Afghanistan. They created that problem.
This vacuum that was created?
Yes, they created the problem.
Does Africa have, because there's an international task force as well that Africa has created, do you think that Africa will be able to provide its own solution to this without any external assistance?
Yes, we need to lead the processes. All the processes on the African continent, we need to lead them. But we cannot solve our problems on our own. We can't solve these problems on our own.
Well, I think that's I think we shall leave the interview there. We've covered quite a wide range of geopolitics there. That's President of the Zambia Socialist Party, Dr. Fred Emembe. Thank you very much for your time today here on RT.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What I'm about to show you is arguably the biggest story in the world right now, in my opinion, but it's being totally ignored by the mainstream media. Of course it is. They don't want you to know about it because it will upend the global world order. I'm going to show you all of the new data and the info in a minute. But first, the U.S. just announced they're getting ready for war with China and Russia simultaneously, because we can't just do one without the other, right? See, this is what happens when people start to lose power. They get very dangerous, and the U.S. is quickly losing power. This week, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced their new 2024 military budget, which aims directly at China. And get this is unbelievable. It includes a 40% increase in spending to attack China. The Pentagon recently said China is, quote, the most comprehensive and serious challenge to the U.S. national security strategy. Here's Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin pushing for this new China war funding.
This is a strategy-driven budget and one driven by the seriousness of our strategic competition with the People's Republic of China. This budget will help us continue to implement our 2022 National Defense Strategy and the President's National Security Strategy.
So the U.S. national security is under attack because China is becoming an economic superpower. They want you to believe that your house and your backyard are going to have Chinese soldiers in it very soon. This is how they will scare you. Better watch out if you're grilling in your backyard barbecue because some Chinese soldiers are about to steal your hot dogs. They really want you to be scared. They're doing a good job of it.
In order to protect the American people, readiness now and readiness in the future through modernization is our number one priority, and there is no other number one. Right now, the international system is under stress. For the first time in our nation's history, the United States is facing two major nuclear powers whose vital national security interests are in competition with the United States.
They are hoping that you'll be scared, so you'll want to go to war to protect your hot dogs or your hamburgers. Even Governor Ron DeSantis is pushing this threat narrative, playing on the fear of a Chinese attack.
My view in terms of U.S. national security is that our number one threat by far is China and the CCP. They're strong militarily, they're strong economically, they've got the largest industrial base in human history, and they have ambitions.
So everyone is on board with this threat, and we need to spend billions more in this new budget to protect you. That's what they're telling you. They're calling it their Pacific Deterrence Initiative. That's the name of it. Deterrence. That's a good one. We're going to deter China and Russia by provoking them in their freaking backyards. The United States this week announced 4 new military bases will be built in the Philippines. The goal of these bases is for war with China. That brings the total number of U.S. military bases to 754 worldwide. Can you imagine? The United States has 754 military bases around the world. Just wrap your heads around that for a moment. But it's all just to deter them. They think we're stupid. The Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Zhang warned earlier this month that if the U.S. doesn't change its course on its military buildup in the Asia Pacific and other policies aimed at China, it will lead to conflict and confrontation. So Washington has a death wish, and they're going to get us all killed if they don't want to back off. But they won't because of what I'm about to show you, and this is the most important part. So the United States just announced it's getting ready for war with China and Putin at the same time for a very important reason. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin are about to completely alter the international power structure and the monetary system. This is why they're getting ready for war. No other reason. The biggest story in the world happened this week in Moscow, and your mainstream media ignored it. This week, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin signed 14 different documents in their face-to-face meeting. The biggest had to do with trade and currency. It's perhaps the biggest story in the world right now, but again, the U.S. media was obsessed with something else.
He could be days away from becoming the first former president to be indicted.
Donald Trump is under multiple criminal inquiries.
If he's about to be arrested, it almost certainly means he's going to be indicted.
The media wants you distracted from the U.S. banking crisis and the decline of the U.S. dollar. Can you imagine? Probably the most important story in the world happened this week, and it almost got no attention. So let me know in the comments if your newscasts in your local markets covered this story. Probably not. So let's give it some real attention right now and give you the most important highlights. Saudi Arabia and Iran, Sunni and Shiite Muslim, are sworn enemies. They hate each other. And yet China just brokered a peace deal between them. Yes, China did that, not the United States and bumbling Joe Biden. China brokered a Saudi-Iran peace deal. Let that sink in. And then this week, Saudi Arabia openly talking about settling their oil trades in the Chinese currency yuan. This would replace the US dollar. This, my friends, is the biggest story in the world. So let me repeat that. They would replace the petrodollar, the US dollar that we use as a hammer to sanction any country we like. If the US doesn't like you and wants to sanction you, They can, because if you want oil, you'll need to pay with US dollars to settle that transaction in US dollars. So this is all about to change. It's not hyperbole to say that this will change everything. Imagine if the US can't threaten you with dollars anymore. All they have left are weapons, and there's nothing more dangerous than a person losing power. You're witnessing it in real time. But if you need more news from this week, Saudi Arabia and Iran and Mexico all getting ready to join the BRICS alliance. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And we already know, we've covered this on the show. Right after Mexico made this announcement, the U.S. started talking about invading Mexico with military forces to stop the drug cartels.
I'm going to introduce legislation, Jesse, to make certain Mexican drug cartels foreign terrorist organizations under U.S. law and set the stage to use military force if necessary to protect America from being poisoned by things coming out of Mexico.
They're at war with you. You need to be at war with them. I can't think of a better use of our military than to blow up labs in Mexico.
They think we're stupid. Senator Lindsey Graham doesn't give a rat's ass about drug cartels. They only care about Mexico joining BRICS. That's it. That's what this was about. And this week, Mexican President Obrador fired back, basically called Biden and Congress a bunch of idiots for provoking a war in Russia and talking about invading Mexico. So what does all of this mean? Well, it would mean that if all of the major oil-producing countries in the world become part of the same alliance, it would mean that half of the entire population of the globe would be on the same team, using a Chinese and Russian oil infrastructure that's tied to oil and gold, and no longer to the US dollar.
The Pentagon issued a warning to China 3 days ago, before President Xi's peace proposals, when they didn't know what was in the peace proposals. There will be consequences for China should it decide to deepen its relations with Russia. Think of the arrogance, first of all, of that. We'll come to the stupidity. But think of the arrogance of one superpower threatening a second superpower with consequences were it to decide to have more friendly relations with a third party. The sense of exceptionalism you must feel to think you're entitled to do that, to think you're entitled to warn other countries who they can be friends with. But let's turn to the stupidity of it. You know, from Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger onwards, it was the policy of the United States to keep Russia and China as far apart as it was possible to keep them, and if possible, to keep them at each other's throats. In the last few years, the policy of the United States and NATO has made Russia and China virtually one country, certainly militarily and economically one country. And now they think China is going to obey orders from somebody called Antony Blinken. The days when China could be ordered around by foreigners is over. Ditto South Africa. South Africa was warned, why are you having joint naval exercises with the Russian and Chinese navies? As the leadership in South Africa pointed out, when you Western colonialist countries were supporting the apartheid dictatorship in South Africa, the only countries that stood with us were Russia and China. And you want us to consider them our enemies? I'm so old, I was there. Every dinner that the African National Congress fighters ate in the bush came from Russia. Every uniform they had, every gun that they carried, every international initiative, campaign that they were able to mount to bring about the freedom of South Africa came from the then Soviet Union and from China. And now you want South Africa to be an enemy of Russia and China? Are you crazy? And South Africa has said no. India has said no. Iran has said no. Latin America, from north to south, has said no. Asia has said no. The Arab worlds, even the Saudis and the kings and the sheikhs in the desert have said no. The world is not against Russia and China. Don't imagine you speak for the world. The West, if you include it in it, countries that are very definitely not in the West. The last time I looked at the globe, Australia is not in the West. New Zealand is not in the West. But even if you allow them to call themselves the West, is 13% of the people of the world. 13% of the world's population lives in what could loosely be described as the West. And we are here to say, even in the West, there are millions and millions and millions of us who reject your domination and your wars and your clubs.
A country that was opposed to our liberation, a country that supported colonial regimes, the apartheid regime in South Africa, the white racist minority regime in Zimbabwe, now Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, the Portuguese colonial governments in Mozambique, in Angola, in Guinea-Bissau, and Cape Verde, today is coming to Africa to teach us about democracy. A country that has toppled so many governments in Africa, that has led so many coups in Africa and other parts of the world, a country that has killed so many of our leaders in Africa and other parts of the world, the killers of Patrice Lumumba, those who toppled Kwame Nkrumah, those who killed Nasser, those who killed Muammar Gaddafi, today are coming to teach us about democracy. A country that has been built on brutal force, on enslavement of other human beings, on the humiliation of Africans, the exploitation of Africans, the plunder of Africa, today is coming to teach us about democracy. That's the arrogance, the imperialist arrogance, the racist arrogance that we are subjected to. We cannot have democracy where there is hegemony of the strongest, mightiest imperialist power. We cannot have democracy where a country's resources, a country's decisions are dictated to by another country. A country that is dominated by another country cannot be democratic. A country that lacks sovereignty cannot be democratic. A people that cannot decide for themselves cannot be democratic. A colony, a neo-colony cannot be democratic. That's why today, even at the United Nations, membership is on the basis of sovereignty. Only sovereign nations can be members of the United Nations, because only sovereign nations can decide for themselves. A colony cannot be a member of the United Nations. It's not by accident. It's not a mistake. If you have no respect for the dignity of others, if you have no respect for the sovereignty of other countries, you cannot claim to be a champion of democracy. They used to say, all roads lead to Rome. Today, we can confidently say, all roads to progress, all roads to what is better for humanity leads to Beijing. This is a country, this is a people that has developed themselves, that has developed itself without colonizing any country in the world, without plundering any country in the world, without subjugating any people in the world. This is a country that is developing with maximum respect for others, for their history, for their cultures, and recognizes the diversity that is there in civilization. We were only taught one form of civilization, one form of modernization. That was the Western way. Westernness was a measure of how civilized, how modern you are. We reject that. We reject it because it's not correct. We reject it because it's undemocratic. We reject it because it's uncivilized to think of the world and of other people in that way. Today, they cannot accept the fact that China has caught up with them. China is about to surpass them in many areas of human endeavor. The imperialist arrogance is inhibiting them from accepting that reality. The racist arrogance is inhibiting them from accepting that reality. But the world is changing. The changes we are witnessing today, as President Xi said in Moscow recently, or the other day, they have never been seen in 100 years. They have shaped a world that they themselves today are scared of. And they have shaped a world that is not sustainable. Democracy, human development is not sustainable on the basis of plunder, on the basis of enslavement, on the basis of humiliating other people every day. That is a system we are seeing today, a system that will not survive if plunder is eliminated, if subjugation of other peoples, other nations is eliminated, if inequality in the world is eliminated. That system will disappear. The only system that you can survive and can endure for long is a system that is based on mutual benefit, win-win relationships, mutual respect for others, accommodation and tolerance of others, and fraternal love for all humanity. This is what we find in China today. This is what China's example is showing us. Indeed, all paths are different. There's no path that is the same, even if they are leading to the same destination. Each path has got its own characteristics. We are seeing that, we are learning that, we are experiencing that today with China. There are many things that need to be done.
Madam Vice President, you have made clear that the message of this trip is centered on a collaborative future. At the same time, the Biden administration committed to calling out any foreign government that advanced anti-gay legislation or violates human rights. All three of the countries that you are visiting on this trip have advanced or proposed anti-gay legislation. Ghana has proposed a bill that would imprison those that engage in same-sex intercourse. Gay sex remains a crime in Tanzania, and same-sex relationships are outlawed in Zambia. What have you said to the president and plan to say to other leaders on this trip about this crackdown on human rights?
I'll start. I have raised this issue, and let me be clear about where we stand. First of all, for the American press who are here, you know that a great deal of work in my career has been to address human rights issues, equality issues across the board, including as it relates to the LGBT community. And I feel very strongly about the importance of supporting the freedom and supporting and fighting for equality among all people, and that all people be treated equally. I will also say that this is an issue that we consider, and I consider, to be a human rights issue, and that will not change. The president and I had a conversation on this very topic, but the conversation was not about China as much as it is about the enduring and important direct relationship that the United States has with Ghana and with African nations. I will tell you that we are very clear, and I will speak for myself and on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration, that the relationship between the United States and this continent and African leaders is an important one. There's a historical basis for the relationship, not to mention as we look forward, as all governments should, and recognize the unachieved, as of yet, opportunities that exist going forward. The median age on the continent of Africa is 19. Think about what that means in terms of potential. Think about the fact that by 2050, 1 in 4 people occupying a place on Mother Earth will be on this continent, and what that means. The trip that I have taken to come here, being here, is about recognizing the incredible opportunity with a sense of optimism about what we do now and how it will impact the world going forward. So this trip and this relationship, yes, we are concerned with security. We are concerned with what is happening on the globe as a whole. We are clear-eyed about that. But this trip is motivated by the importance of the direct relationship between the United States and Ghana. And as I travel the continent, those countries as well. Host you at the White House in 2021, and then again to meet with you during the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit last December, and then to be here today to accept the invitation you so graciously offered that I would visit your beautiful country. So thank you for the warm welcome. President Biden and I have made clear that the United States is strengthening our partnerships across the continent of Africa. And we are guided not by what we can do for Africa, but what we can do with Africa and our African partners on this continent. African nations such as Ghana play a critical role in a number of global issues, whether it be the issue of food security, the climate crisis, or resilient supply chains. African voices, including that of Ghana, are critical to global peace and security, including the defense of the United Nations Charter. And African ingenuity and innovation, I am certain, will shape the future of the world. As I begin this week-long visit across the continent, it is wonderful to start here in Ghana. Mr. President, under your leadership, Ghana has been a beacon of democracy and a contributor to global peace and security. Your leadership in particular and personal engagement has strengthened the ties between the diaspora and the continent of Africa. And President Joe Biden and I are grateful to have you as a partner. Our countries share a long history. Our people share a long history. As you have mentioned and we have discussed, in 1957, when Ghana gained independence, your nation inspired millions of Americans and millions more around the world. Martin Luther King Jr. and many other Americans were here to celebrate that occasion and to witness the dawn of a new era. And since then, the promise of Ghana continues to draw us near. Hundreds of thousands of Black Americans came here 4 years ago to participate in the year of the return, and more return every year. They have come here as a reminder of the history of slavery. They have come to honor their lineage and to understand their ancestry. And I thank you, Mr. President, as we have discussed, for your personal leadership in prioritizing engagement with the African diaspora. Our people-to-people ties are a source of strength, and the Biden-Harris administration is committed to these ties. As you have mentioned, we have had today, this afternoon, a wide-ranging discussion. We have discussed a number of important topics, including the importance of concepts and priorities such as freedom and liberty, which are, to be sure, at the core of who we are as Americans and who Ghanaians are. Mr. President, you put it well during the State of the Nation a few weeks ago, and I'm going to quote you when you said, "It is important we never forget that democracy is not a static achievement, but a promise that needs continuous nurturing." I agree. I often, in fact, say that there is a duality when it comes to democracies, in that they are both strength and an exhibition of strength, and they are fragile. We appreciate your leadership in response to recent democratic backsliding in West Africa and standing up for democratic principles around the world. We also recognize Ghana's significant contributions in the Sahel, and I thank you for your leadership there. To help address the threats of violent extremism and instability, today I am pleased to announce $100 million in support of Benin, Ghana, Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo. Last week, President Joe Biden announced a strategic plan for coastal West Africa as part of the United States strategy to prevent conflict and promote stability. Today, funding and the announcement that I've just made will help implement that plan and will address security, governance, and development issues in the region. With regard specifically to the economy, I recognize the challenges Ghanaians are facing, especially in the wake of a global pandemic and the disruptions caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We welcome Ghana's commitment to reforming its economy to deliver sustainable and inclusive growth. We support Ghana's engagement with the IMF and will continue to push for all bilateral creditors to provide meaningful debt reduction for countries that need it, including Ghana. We must work together as an international community to ease the debt burden that is facing far too many countries. It is critical to do so, to build long-term economic growth and prosperity, and to increase U.S. investment, a key priority for our administration, and in particular, private sector investment. Our partnership with Ghana is already strong, and today, Mr. President, I believe we strengthened it even more. I thank you for your gracious hosting of this important conversation and all of the work we will do going forward. Thank you.
So do you hear all these videos? It is done. China is gonna take over. The world has been divided. So the world has been divided. It's more like these nations right here, these nations over here, Europe, right here, and USA and Canada, or this part, including Australia, they're on one side. And these nations right here, also right there, China has a hold, Africa, all these nations, Russia, they're on one side. I saw one other report saying Japan has ditched the West. At this moment, I'm not sure where India is, which side, whether it has also ditched these group 1 and went ahead and held on to group 2. So this is what has happened. Now China has a hold over all these. In desperation, USA has been trying to use money. The same way players, men, they use money to lure women to come to them. And of course, women, they respond. Because that is why even on YouTube, some of them create those videos saying gold digger, to find gold digger by first pretending to have nothing and then show up and say, oh, this is my car. And then the lady changes now, wants to respond to the man, and then they say gold digger. Because even women, they do what? That's what they want. They want what? The money. That's what USA is doing. Is like USA is like a man trying to win women with money, but it won't work. Even like let's put it this way, the scripture says, give a cup of water to what? Your enemy, and you will heap burning coal on them. That is more powerful. You are giving that person something tangible. Yes, you can do the other part, which is forgiving, but that one will not be impactful compared to giving your enemy something, giving them a gift. Why did I say forgiveness doesn't work? My dear, it only sparks pride, and it makes even that person more harden their heart more. They will say, oh, this person said they forgave you for what you said and what you did. And the person said, what? Forgive what? Is there anything to forgive? Forgive me for what? Do you see that? That's what that person will say. They'll say, there's nothing to forgive here. Why is that person saying you forgave me? You see that? So, forgiving doesn't work on the same level with giving something tangible. It is the same thing right here. Money comes, money goes. Look at what COVID did to marriages. There was in the news that many marriages ended because women left their marriages. Because men lost their jobs, money gone, and what would be the reason women would stay? The money wasn't there. So this is the sad part, that many still don't get it. They think money is the power. Yes, Solomon said money is the answer for all things. But when you use it wisely, use that money the way China has used, by building something tangible, infrastructure, then money has power. Even when it comes to like trying to lure a woman, better buy tangible things than giving money for that person to go and use on whatever they want. A time will come, you have nothing to point at. They will just say, I'm moving on, because you gave money. They did whatever they wanted with that money. But let's come to where you bought infrastructure, you bought houses, cars. That person is kind of bound. They're even ashamed to say they leave you, because they'll say, what if this person changes their mind and say, I want the stuff back? Because it's tangible. Money is like a spirit. It comes, it goes. Infrastructure is there. Tell me, where is this train gonna go? This railroad or rail line that China built in this nation, it's there. Go there, you'll find it. Come, USA, and point at the money that you gave. Where is it? You can't see it. It's invincible. It's like a spirit. That is why money has no power if it's not used right. So this is what USA tried to do, missed the mark, should have done what China did. So USA cannot play on the same level, though that journalist asked, what can USA do? Do this, build shopping malls. China is doing that. Do you see that? So China, a nation led by a president, Xi Jinping, who was wise, and I believe, even though he's not a believer, God used him, because God said he will use anything. The other thing I will say is, there is nothing that can be done to change all this. It's done. You cannot fast. You cannot pray. You can fast 40 days. Or maybe you say, I'm going to double that and say 80 days. My dear, you will die. They will bury you. This that the Lord said will happen will come to pass. You can't delay it. On social media, I saw one who posted, a lady that posted and said, let's pray for the delay. My dear, do you know what a timeline is? A timeline is fixed in God's sense. He has already put fixed positions, how things are going to happen in the book of Revelations. You check. So there is no way that you can change what has been said. I did a video in which I revealed what time really is. You should watch that video. Now, whatever happened in the book of Revelations, it already happened. We already lived that time period. It's done. So we are just living through what has already happened. As the scriptures say, he reveals the end from the beginning. So in the beginning, he reveals the end. He did that with Enoch in the book of Enoch. So don't listen to preachers that say the book of Enoch, what is fake. My dear, find the book of Enoch, read it, leave those preachers, and whatever title. This time it's not about title. One can call themselves an apostle and they're telling you that the book of Enoch is false. My dear, walk away from that. Go and read the book of Enoch. Enoch revealed the end from the beginning. Even the book of Revelations, it was just the moment the Lord had left, he revealed the end. The book of Revelations and the events, they are fixed. They cannot be moved by prayer, repenting. You can't change that. Sorry, You cannot say, where is faith? Oh God. Someone did tell me something like that. I said the same thing. They said, no, God is not like that. God, are you telling me God cannot change? The scripture says God can change. He can do anything, anytime he can change. But listen, God created these events. They already happened. So you cannot say you fast and change that. One world government is coming. You can know the name of the Antichrist and try to assassinate him. It won't work. It won't what? It will not work. Because it's fixed that he will surely be the one to rule the world government. I will make another video to just give you the clues who, or to point you what you should be looking at. I may not reveal his name. We'll talk about that because this video is gonna be long if I go into that. So I believe I've given him everything. I've explained and I believe it is clear. You said it is clear. Now, USA is not yet done. Chapter. Now, like I said in my previous videos, USA is on a downfall. Yes, even now, it's going to be attacked. That's why I said in my other videos that if you live in Europe and USA, these areas, especially in USA and let's say Washington DC, you better make plans to flee. Why? Because when Russia retaliates because of what USA is doing, who gets nuked? Washington DC first, because that's where the capital is. Do you see that? Europe, the nations that are trying to stand with USA, they're just bringing trouble to themselves. USA is kind of a dangerous nation to stick with at this moment in time, 2023. USA is like a cursed nation you are supposed to stay away from as a friend, because you will be in trouble. When the war breaks out, all nations that stands with USA, they'll get the hit. So, like I said, be ready to flee. If you are in USA and you are in especially big capital or big cities. What I mean by big cities, you understand, large cities with that are, say, economic powerhouses, because Russia would want to destroy all that power, that the remaining power of the economy of USA. So that's what's gonna happen. It is inevitable. You can't change it. Yes, you can fast as a nation. All believers in USA fast that, oh, let not this nation be nuked. It will happen. It will do what? It will happen. Revelations. Look at this. Now, he did what? God has these nations, put it in their hearts to do what? To destroy this nation that is being talked about. And this nation, Babylon, Mystery Babylon, this Mystery Babylon is USA. This harlot, the woman being talked about in this book of Revelation, is USA. Listen to me, it's not Rome, it's not the Catholic Church. That's exactly what most of these videos again on YouTube do. They keep missing the mark because they are reading using their mind and not reading and asking the Lord to give revelations what this or that means. They are reading in trying to put things together. They said, oh, look, dressed in this color, look at what the Catholic priests wear. Yes, but still, that's not it. USA is the harlot. I'm yet to make a full video, like I said, on about the Antichrist. I'll explain all this with scriptures so that you get it. Now listen to this prophecy God gave this man.
I'm awake. I've never had an open vision like this before. I don't know what this is. I think I'm watching 9/11 unfold again. And so while I'm sitting there, the whole television screen switches. And this news anchor comes on and he says, ladies and gentlemen, the oddest thing is happening. Normally, hurricanes form over the ocean, over water, and then they come upon on shore. He said, but there is a hurricane that has formed over America. And while he was talking, it went to a satellite image. I saw literally from north to south, from east to west, the side of a hurricane, a storm that was over America. The eye of the storm was moving right down the center of America. The news anchor said, this is the oddest storm, this hurricane, this is unbelievable. He's describing this thing, and then he says, ladies and gentlemen, we have a correspondent who is on the ground in the eye of the storm. Immediately the television goes to this correspondent, and like you would see with any other news report in a hurricane, this man's kind of being beaten and tossed with the wind, and you can see the debris just swirling around his body, and he's saying, ladies and gentlemen, this is an unusual storm. This isn't like any storm that I've ever reported on. And he reaches down on the ground and he picks up a handful of $1 bills. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, he said, this is a storm of dollar bills. Well, when he said that, immediately it came back to the news anchor. Now again, keep in mind, I'm awake. I'm thinking this is actually happening, right? It hasn't dawned on me that this is a vision. I think this is the real deal and this is actually happening. And so it comes back to the news anchor, and the news anchor says, ladies and gentlemen, there's been another tragedy that has hit America. We have just experienced a major earthquake on the New Madrid fault line. And immediately I started seeing pictures of devastation all over the New Madrid fault line. I saw cities that were flooded. I saw cities that were destroyed. I saw people walking around in the streets, stumbling around in the smoke and in the debris. They looked like they were dazed. People were crying out for help. And while I was watching this, division, it was like all of the United States was just split in half. While I was watching this, behind my right ear, I was sitting on the couch, and behind my right ear, I heard a booming voice, which I believe to be the voice of the Lord, that said these words, they divided my land, now I will divide their land. I knew immediately that God was speaking about Joel chapter 3, where God prophesies through the prophet Joel about the parting of the land of Israel and judgment coming to the nations. And God said, I will reward you swiftly, quickly for what you've done to my land. And so I felt like this earthquake, and people say, was it a literal earthquake? Was it a spiritual earthquake? Was it a dividing of the nation? I can't say. All I can tell you is what I saw. I can tell you that I saw devastation. I continued to watch the television, and by this time, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? Do I go wake up my family? Do I call people? How am I going to open the church? What's the church going to do? I'm 1,000, come on, y'all know what I'm talking about. 1,000 thoughts are going through your mind in just a flash. And then all of a sudden, I see more pictures going on television. People are rioting in the streets. I see riots all over America. I see cities on fire and blazing. I see people rioting in the streets, looting buildings, things of that nature. And one of the things that sticks out to me more than anything else in this vision that I've never forgotten is I saw people holding signs, big signs, and on the signs it said, I want my entitlements. And I knew that this had something to do with the economy. When I saw these signs, I want my entitlements, immediately I was sucked up from where I was right then, and I was just in a flash, I was sitting in a room in the Middle East. Now, you say, how do you know it's the Middle East? Because I've been to the Middle East several times, and the Middle East has a feel to it. Anybody that's been to Israel or that part of the world knows that the Middle East just has a feel, that Mediterranean feel that no other place in the world has. I knew I was in the Middle East, and I was sitting in a room, and there was a long table, and there were heads of nations around these tables. I can tell you who was there. China was there, India was there, Indonesia was there, Syria was there, Turkey was there, Iran was there, Saudi Arabia was there, Russia was there. I mean, I could just go on and on. Egypt was sitting around the table. All of these nations were sitting around this long table, and they were having a discussion. And the discussion was how to destroy America. And they went around the table in this discussion, and they tossed several ideas, and finally one of the people stood up, which I could tell you the nation that stood up, but I want to hold that for a later time because the Lord hasn't released me to say this. Only to my church has He released me to share that. But this nation stood up, leader stood up and said, I can tell you how we're going to do it. The American dollar is in trouble. There is nothing holding stability to the American dollar except one thing. He said, here's what it is. All of us have to purchase dollars. It is the world currency. We have to purchase dollars to buy oil. And he said, what we're going to do is we're going to buy and sell oil with a different currency other than the American dollar. And when you take that one thing out of that equation, the American dollar will collapse. They're having this discussion. And I'm sitting here like a third party listening to this. And I'm thinking, what in the world am I hearing? And one guy, they started having a discussion, okay, what currency are we going to use? And they went around the table and nobody could come to an agreement of a currency. And finally, one of them said, I know what we'll do. We can all agree that we will trade oil for gold. Will everybody agree to that? And they said, yes, we will agree to that. And I knew immediately when I heard that, I immediately hit my body. I was sitting back on my couch. I came to, I was awake, I was shaking. I couldn't believe what I'd just seen. I knew God was showing me something that was about to happen. The Lord showed me other things while I was in that about the Middle East. I saw the entire Middle East pushing America out of the Middle East.
Here we go. Just as I predicted, now we're playing with the big stuff. The N-word, that is the nuclear word, is now being used front and center all over the world. This situation was caused by us. It's what happens when you have incompetent people running your government. All I can say to you is, right now, drop down and pray. Does Joe Biden understand that the reason NATO currently exists loaded up with cash is because President Donald J. Trump insisted that delinquent nations, of which there were many, carry their own weight and pay their fair share? If not, I insisted, we will not protect them from the evil empire. We will not do it. The money came pouring in after decades of non-payment and abuse. I haven't heard Joe say, thank you, President Trump, for the great job you did. Perhaps I'm just not listening. But the fact is, when I was president, I got NATO nations to pay hundreds of billions of dollars into NATO. They were all delinquent, most of them, and it was a disaster. They had no money. The United States was paying for NATO at a level that they've never paid before. Now NATO's stuffed up with cash. Thank you very much, President Trump. Thank you very much. China, Russia, and Iran, not to mention North Korea and other countries, have placed the U.S. in a very bad and dangerous position. They are dividing up the world as we sit around and let them do it. They no longer respect the United States, but they will. Go out and vote. 2024, we have to win back the White House. Thank you very much.
Did you hear that? What did I say? Exactly. I've already said it in previous videos, even on social media, that the harlot is USA. Mystery Babylon is USA. It will be destroyed by these nations, Russia and China. These are the big powers. These are the two leaders that will lead the destruction, the complete, total leveling of USA. So yes, the Antichrist will rule, but there will come a point now God is going to make USA leveled. At that time, don't worry, believers, because you won't be here. The rapture would have happened, but as believers we will live through the Antichrist, the one world government, when it is introduced. And of course it's coming through the United Nations. So when you hear United Nations is meeting and world leaders are meeting, of course when I say world leaders, most of these other nations, they may not attend, but they'll still go ahead and install the world government, one world government, trying to take hold, trying to rule the whole world, taking power away from China. They will do that. And of course, God will now make these nations to totally retaliate and clear off USA. And that will be the final end of United States. So that's it, people. You have heard. Just subscribe and wait for the other video that I'm going to be doing in a short while concerning how you can know who this Antichrist is. I will give you clues that are clear this time. For example, what does beast stand for? For you to be interested to know the two beasts, the first beast and the second beast. My dear, it's nothing that you have heard before. I have not heard anyone, again, I said anyone. This is not pride, because they say, no, if you are saying you are the only one. I didn't say I'm the only one. I said I didn't hear anyone say it the way I got the revelation about the beast, the first beast and the second beast. What's the meaning of this? Yes, these are human beings. But again, why? Just subscribe, click on notification so that you'll be getting the notification when I post a video. One of those videos, it will be about the same. I said notification because, as you can see, my channel, it's wide. I deal on a wide range of topics. So it's more like a one-stop TV station. You come, you will find everything. You will find entertainment. You will find prophecy. You will find news. That's what I'm doing. So just click. Be checking when you hear a notification that there's a video posted. You check whether that's the one, and you will land on the video that I'm talking about. So people, that's it for now. Goodbye, take care, and like I said, prepare to flee. I did a video about Project Flee. Right here, you can watch that and prepare yourself. This thing, I keep coming to this thing of preachers not really giving the correct information because they are going with I don't know, maybe say because I'm a preacher, I have a title, I am an apostle, I have this big title. They are missing the mark. There is only one that I say is really giving the correct prophecy, and this is he. Though he doesn't have an official channel on YouTube, you will still find the videos on YouTube. So that's it, people. I think I've given you something to work on, something to do your research on. So finally, from me, goodbye and take care.